The reason we decided to change the way we were giving feedback and marking was because of two main factors. There's a lot of research that's gone on about verbal feedback and how effective it was. So we wanted to try that out to see how it would improve learning. And the second reason being that we were finding the workload of teachers was massive due to the amount of marking that they were having to do.
We did think about the effectiveness of that marking as well, because we would be writing reams about what the children needed to do, and then it was having to try and build in time to get those children to then look at what we read. And I teach in foundation phase, so obviously that's much, much harder with children lower down for them to actually read what you've written. So the time it was taking for the marking, the effectiveness of it, made us think again, really.
Yeah, because another big thing that the head teacher brought up was the fact that, like you brought up foundation phase, in reception, there'd sort of be, the child had written a very effective sentence, however the teacher then had marked it with almost a paragraph, and he was saying this doesn't quite match up, the child can't read it, who are we doing it for? So that's where the sort of motivation came from. In order to introduce the verbal feedback, the head teacher asked me if I would take on this project. So we decided to look at a concentrated group, didn't we?
Yeah.
In year 2, year 4 and year 6. So we took a control group where we picked middle ability children, a group of 6. Myself and you, and then the teachers in year 6 decided that we would use time effectively to try it out with them. So we used like sort of assembly time or guided reading sessions, or there'd be snippets throughout the day where we would try our best to make sure that we were giving the children verbal feedback in that group. That was where it all started from, and we did that for summer term, didn't we? Yeah.
It's made a difference in the children's learning because of the fact the children are getting instant feedback and they can work on it straight away. We're not leaving it for another day or another session even during the same day. Because it's immediate, it's more effective. The children then can be looking at it the next time we start on the piece of work. We can say, do you remember we looked over your piece of work? You had to change this with your purple pencil. Just remember that now for this session. And it was more effective because they would remember, because they'd actually physically done it. It actually made a difference to what they were doing next.
Yeah, because we actually carried out a questionnaire before we did the trial in summer term, and that's where we found out lots of my children, very honest, said that they didn't always read the comments that were written to them. So I found that when we were having that time, and it's so lovely to have that time with them as well, to have that verbal feedback, it was far more effective. They were altering their work far more often than they had been had they had a written reply.
It really sunk into them, because us talking to them and then the physical act of doing it as well actually made a difference to their end products. It built on it every time we did it. So, and we used it across the curriculum, so it was in literacy, yes, it was also in numeracy as well, and other subjects. And it started to just naturally kind of spread out from just doing it in starting off in literacy.
Yes.
Because they'd be saying, can I use my purple pencil now? When we'd spoken to them. So it was really important that it had an effect throughout what we were doing.
The impact on us as teachers has been great. It's actually meant that there's less time doing, well, like we said, obviously pointless marking to an extent. There's been less time spent on that, and more time spent quality with the children and having that, a better effect, really. But the workload has definitely decreased. I have to add, it's probably one of the easiest ad sessions to do with staff when they realised that we were condensing down their workload. But everyone's really enjoying it now that we've started it fully in September now, where we're using a lot more codes and things. And it's saving people from writing reams and reams and pointless statements as well. People were feeling like they had to write sort of like, you have achieved the learning objective. So instead of doing that now, we've just got LO tick, so the learning objective tick. So little things like that means that teachers are having more time to give into preparation of lessons and things like that.
For example, when you're writing verbal feedback on a book, you could be writing verbal feedback and then exactly what the child said. Whereas now we could be writing like verbal feedback or number reversal or just reversal. And it's clear then that we've intervened in some stage. And it's not just us doing it now. It's gone on to our teaching assistants working with groups who are able to use the same codes. And so there's a consistency across the whole of the school. I have to say I feel more like a facilitator of their learning now, rather than somebody who imparts the knowledge, because we're kind of co-constructing together as we go through the learning pathway that they're having in that lesson. So I think it's been really, really important, and it has had a big effect on how we feel about us as teachers, but also the children as learners
Yeah.
and leading it themselves.
Yeah, I can't forget to mention, obviously, that there is still times where written feedback is used, especially higher up with the Key Stage 2 teachers. However, we have tried our best to try and condense that down, like I said previously, with using codes and things like that. But it has had a very positive effect on all the staff.
I think that there is the difficulty changing to more verbal feedback is because you feel under pressure to have everything recorded so that then certain people visit us, be it from the authority or Eston. We feel that we have maybe not got as much evidence as we would have had, but actually because we can talk about it a lot more and the children can talk about it a lot more, I think it's much more effective than it was before.
That brings us back to what spurred us on to do this in the first place, is I think people felt like they had to overcompensate by writing loads because they were worried about what people would think when they open up the book. But we've tried to compensate because I think, especially in foundation phase, it was done to sort of tell you the story of how much differentiation had gone on, how much support. But like Tim said previously, we'll use a code sort of like if they've worked independently, as I'm sure many people do. But if the difference might be that your top child didn't have a word mat or a writing frame, but your middle child maybe did. So all we do is writing frame. But I think coming back to what we were saying about the difficulty is, I think people are finding it a little bit hard to sort of let go.
When you've been doing it for quite a few years, to suddenly stop doing it is a big ask.